The coming death of Bonnaroo: how a prosecutor's catastrophic policy failures are killing the music festival. District Attorney Craig Northcott sold Coffee County a promise: equal justice at Bonnaroo. What he delivered was a disaster. His policies strip away flexible money, fracture the county's relationship with the festival, burden the courts, and recreate the same two-tier justice he claimed to oppose. Craig Northcott built his campaign around one slogan: justice isn't for sale. It sounded simple, it sounded fair, it sounded like reform. But it was not thought through, because Bonnaroo was never going to be managed by an ordinary criminal docket. Northcott attacked the old Bonnaroo Letters system as two-tier justice. Under that system, many festival attendees accused of minor personal use drug offenses could resolve their cases by mail. He said local residents did not get the same treatment. He said Coffee County was selling justice, and he promised to end it. But campaign rhetoric does not survive contact with reality. The promise may have sounded good at a podium, but the idea behind it was reckless from the start. It assumed Coffee County could suddenly prosecute thousands of festival attendees like ordinary local defendants without overwhelming the justice system. That was not a serious plan. It was political theater dressed up as reform. A basic calculation should have made the problem obvious. Coffee County did not have the jail space, court capacity, probation services, or administrative staff to treat every Bonnaroo case like a normal local case. The end of the Bonnaroo Letters caused criminal dockets to be overwhelmed and gridlocked the district's judicial process. In desperation, Northcott created a special docket for Bonnaroo, entirely abandoning his promise that all prosecutions would adhere to the same processes. The almost immediate disregard to produce equal justice is unexcusable, but the level of financial damage that the county endured by buying into Northcott's empty campaign promises is unfathomable. Before Northcott's policy shift, Coffee County had two distinct Bonnaroo-related financial revenues. The first was the Bonnaroo Letters money. That system generated roughly $650,000 per year in drug fund revenue, and that money was flexible. It could support narcotics enforcement, overtime, and broader public safety operations. The second source was Bonnaroo's cooperative support. That included roughly $3 per ticket donation, a direct annual payment of about $30,000, and an estimated up to $300,000 in public safety support for EMS, traffic control, and festival operations. Bonnaroo also supported schools, charities, and community programs. The Bonnaroo Letters produced fine-based flexible revenue. Bonnaroo's cooperative support was separate festival support. Together, depending on attendance, it gave Coffee County roughly $1.2 million in annual value. Northcott's policy destroyed the first stream, the Bonnaroo Letters money. Coffee County was still left carrying the burden of Bonnaroo. By 2018, the damage was visible. Coffee County had included expected Bonnaroo funds in its budget, even though the formal agreement had expired. The county came up short, and Bonnaroo had to step in with a last-minute $205,000 stopgap agreement just days before the festival to help cover the county's financial gap. That financial pressure pushed Coffee County toward the backdoor solution: the mandatory $5 per ticket tax. But the tax did not simply replace the lost Bonnaroo Letters money. It changed the whole relationship with the festival. Before the tax, Bonnaroo provided separate cooperative support. But once Coffee County forced the ticket tax, Bonnaroo's position became clear. If Coffee County was going to take money through the tax, then that would be the only money the county would get from the festival. The broader cooperative support was over. That was the chain reaction. Northcott's policy eliminated the Bonnaroo Letters revenue. The tax fractured the broader relationship. And once that relationship fractured, Coffee County lost the separate flexible support that had made the old arrangement far more valuable. In the end, Coffee County traded a broad financial partnership worth roughly $1.2 million in annual value for a $5 per ticket tax that brings in roughly $350 to $400,000. And unlike the old arrangement, that tax money is restricted. It must be spent on Bonnaroo-related costs. Craig Northcott's policy failure cost a yearly swing that was roughly $700,000 to $850,000 in lost value. That's before even counting added court burden, legal processing, and taxpayer exposure. And while Coffee County absorbed those losses, Northcott's own compensation continued moving in the opposite direction. Public salary records show his compensation rising from approximately $157,000 in 2018 to more than $217,000 by 2025. An increase of nearly $60,000 during the same period. His Bonnaroo policies were causing the county lost revenue, while absorbing more burden. But Northcott's paycheck continued to grow. The numbers tell a simple story. While taxpayers were paying the price for his failed policies, Northcott's personal income increased at 2.5 times the rate of the county's average citizen. The taxpayers got all the risk and no reward. Northcott had no risk and increased reward. Northcott promised equal justice, but all the taxpayers got was the bill for a service he never provided. Under the old system, festival attendees could pay a fine and use the mail-in process. The new system attendees hired the local private attorneys who could leverage their favor from Northcott that would allow special outcomes that citizens rarely experienced, diverting the Bonnaroo letter revenue away from the county and into the pockets of the very people who took an oath to practice law, creating a shield from an oath that tasked them with the duty to report any misconduct by a prosecutor. Meanwhile, a local resident facing the same kind of charges will be arrested, booked, and forced to post bond. Northcott did not abolish special treatment, he rebuilt it in a different form, and that new system created a major power shift. Under the old structure, outcomes were more predictable. Under Northcott's structure, outcomes varied dependent on his discretion. That is where the hypocrisy becomes dangerous. Northcott campaigned against special treatment, he promised fairness, but his policy created a system where justice became more dependent on money, lawyers, discretion, and prosecutorial power. It allowed him to play God over the very system he claimed he was cleaning up. And after all of that damage, after the lost money, the broken relationship, the court burden, the 2018 shortfall, and the new two-tier system, Northcott's answer is not repair. His answer is escalation. In a law enforcement committee meeting, Sheriff Chad Parton laid out Northcott's 2025 plan. Sheriff Chad Parton said the DA wanted to go back old school with Bonnaroo. He said they were not going in there to work for Bonnaroo. They were going in for enforcement. He said they would be visible, active, and intensified whether they like it or not. And the most revealing line was this: if someone is out there smoking marijuana, they're going to get a ticket. That's what District Attorney Craig Northcott wants.
This is what the DA wants, and I guess we're going to do it, and I agree with him. And we'll see how it works out. But, you know, if somebody's out there smoking marijuana, they're going to get a ticket. That's what he wants. It's going to get intensified out there whether they like it or not.
That is not for public safety or responding to a growing threat. Even the sheriff admitted Bonnaroo is not as bad as it was in the early days.
You know, fortunately, we've not had the amount of rest out there in times past. Bonnaroo has really changed the atmosphere out there. It's not as bad as it was in the early days.
So the threat went down, yet Northcott's show of force policy is ready to inflict the damage in 2026 that the festival was spared by the 2025 rainout. That is not governance, that is ideology-led prosecution, and if Bonnaroo Music Festival decides to leave Coffee County, it will not be because of crime, lack of profitability, it will be because of a district attorney's unchecked power to enforce one catastrophic policy after another that made Bonnaroo more expensive, more hostile, more unstable, and harder to sustain.